What I'm finding when I interact with parents and I'm trying to prepare them for an IEP meeting, which they might be attending on their own, people are really good at telling me that the distance learning isn't working. But what you need to do is you need to have a meaningful period of engagement, perhaps a couple of months, where you're actually troubleshooting with the district and trying to make it work and documenting what happens. But the other thing is people are saying, oh, the distance learning doesn't work for me. My kid just really spaces out. I mean, that's not going to cut it. It's got to be a really factual, almost like taking data, in 5-minute blocks. Okay, so first when he tried to tune into the screen, he started, when he was supposed to attend, he started humming instead. Then I redirected him, and 30 seconds later, he started picking at his fingernails. I mean, it really has to be um, data driven, because what they're doing is they're coming into the Zoom meetings and they're saying, well, we think this is working fine. And like one teacher said, the mom said, well, I think the student's really behind in this class and he's not accessing the work. And the teacher said, well, actually, he corrected me on a sloppy mistake that I made. You know, so just like in the IEP land of old, now that administrators have gotten their feet wet with the technology and the process, they're coming in and doing the same old, which is saying that this is working just fine, and your kid's doing, really well with this. So you know, that's just something that is going to require a huge amount of energy from parents to really effectively document, but there's not any other way around it. So
Do you think, Bonnie, and forgive me if this is a ridiculous question, but
I don't think there are any.
well, I'm not sure, but I feel like there's a difference in the expectations, and that people aren't disclosing what their expectations are. That, as a parent, my son, as far as I'm aware, my son is entitled to a free appropriate public education, and that just because we're in COVID, that we shouldn't, we don't have an expectation of less. I understand that it's harder, but I feel like what I'm hearing from some people is that teachers and districts have said, look, this year is going to kind of be a wash, and we're not giving the expectation that our kids are going to access the full curriculum of what would normally have planned, the standards that we normally have planned for even our neurotypical kiddos. And the special ed kids are like that there's no expectation that we're going to make progress this year. Are you feeling that, or is that just
Well,
me?
that's not what the federal government is saying the district's obligation is. And did you share the Norris School District case with people?
We have not shared that, and I apologize. We need to
Well,
get
I
on.
think that that's an important case for people to read, because what it does in part is it gives you the history between March and now, in terms of what the state of California did in response to what the federal government told them. And the things that the federal government told California would apply equally in the other 49 states. And they basically said, look, you may not be able to provide distance learning. I mean, you may not be able to implement the IEP in the same way as you would have if you were actually in a classroom face to face with these students. But you still have an obligation to offer, a free appropriate public education and implement the IEP to the best of your ability via either distance measures, bringing students in to a school site to work with them one-on-one, or paying other people who can come into the home if you district aren't willing or able to send your personnel in to do the face-to-face services. So I think, okay, look, the reality is, and this is just my opinion, and it's not even really a legal opinion, it's a life opinion. Okay,
Got it.
the reality is there is a pandemic, and if you get COVID and you're my age, you got a good chance of dying. So that's a reality on the ground. And I don't know, how young people have to be to not be worried about dying. But obviously, there are a bunch of teachers out there that are worried about dying and don't really want to be forced back until they're comfortable to be in a teaching environment. And so you have on one hand that you have the tension of what the federal government is telling people, teachers, and public school administrators that they have to do. And then on the other hand, there is the health reality. But when I talk on the show, I'm not really talking about what the health reality is for anybody who's, doing face-to-face instruction. I'm leaving that to, the state and federal government. What I am talking about is what the federal government has said the states have to do to fulfill their obligations under the IDEA during school closure. And if districts are shrugging and saying, well, this year's just going to be a wash, that is fine. They can do that, but they're going to meet that mess later because the federal government has made it very clear that as soon as school reopens, there's going to be an IEP meeting to figure out what the student didn't get, what they're going to get now instead. So I'm just trying to keep everybody afloat to the best of our ability until you can go back to school and have a discussion about what comp ed you're owed. Okay.
And I think that phrase, to the best of your ability, is, I think that's the whole linchpin of it, right? Because different people's interpretations of it.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.